All right, here we go. We're rolling. Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of the Endless TBR. My name is Christian, and this is my channel where I love to talk about the books that I'm reading and have read. And like I said, this is my 4th video. Super excited to be doing this. Been having a lot of fun with these videos. For those of y'all that have watched my other videos, hopefully this is the best lit video that I've done so far. I have a ring light that I mistakenly bought, not realizing that it didn't come with a stand, and I just got the stand in 2 days ago, and it is right there looking at me, and from what I see on my camera, I think it looks a lot better. So I'm still figuring this out, but having a lot of fun doing it, and slowly trying to invest in the channel. Last month I got the camera itself, the ring light, a couple big investments, but necessary ones, of course, and then this month I got these LED lights behind me, which I still love, and now the stand. So coming right at me. Hopefully the lighting is the best it's been. And then my next investment is probably going to be a new microphone. I want to get one of those little clip-on ones to make my audio quality better. Right now I'm using the camera that came with the microphone that came with the camera sitting on top of the camera, but I know it's not the best. So that's going to be step number 2. Just got to go a little at a time, got to make the money and then spend it. So yeah, okay, so I'm going to stop talking about that now and get into some books. But this is going to be a little bit of a June TBR update, and then I'm going to briefly go over a small book haul that I did at a local bookstore a little earlier this month. But for those of y'all that watched my most previous video from 2 weeks ago, my June TBR consisted of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, Tales of Light and Life from the Star Wars High Republic, the City of Ember 4-books box set, and The Well of Ascension, the second book in the Mistborn trilogy. And I can say things are going really, really well. Much better than they did last month. For May, I think I bit off a little more than I could chew, being my first set of video books. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but this month has been going a lot better because I think I managed my expectations a little bit better as to what I can read. But let's go over it. So the first book that I finished this month was The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, a science fiction classic that was written in the late 1800s. And I'm going to kind of echo what I said in my previous video. From a historical perspective, this is a great book because it is the birth of the invasion story. A lot of people say it's the birth of science fiction itself. There's a lot to love here if you are a lover of classics and are trying to read all of the classics. I will say, though, as a reader of modern science fiction, I did find this book a little dull. I did not hate it by any means, and I appreciate it a lot, but I did have, even though it's a small little book, a little bit of trouble getting through it. Now, I will say this book is split into 2 sections, and I did think section 2 was a lot more exciting than section 1. Section 1 deals with the confusion of the narrator, what's happening, going from point A, from point B, trying to figure what's going on. Book 2 deals a lot more. There's a section about the aliens' anatomy, the horrors of the things that they're doing to humanity, and the resolution itself. So I did enjoy the second part a lot. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 on Goodreads, or sorry, a 3 out of 5. I would give it a 3.5, but you can't do the 0.5s on Goodreads. But overall, I would say this is definitely worthwhile if you want to learn about the history of science fiction. I just didn't love it. I didn't think it was all that exciting. But the second half was definitely a lot stronger than the first. So, yeah, that's my opinion on this book. Might not be a popular opinion, but that's what I thought about it. So, moving on to number 2. And I know what some people are going to think. Is this guy really going to rate this book over this book? Might lose some credibility here, but the answer is yes, I am, because I loved A Court of Wings and Ruin. So to give you a little backstory, my fiance got me the ACOTAR box set earlier this year. I read the first book. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I was like, meh, okay. I wasn't very excited to continue the series, but then I read A Court of Mist and Fury, and there's a major change that happens in that book that made me appreciate the series a lot more, became a lot more invested in it, and I read book 2 and was like, okay, I can do this. I can make it through it. I'm happy to say that I thought book 3 was even better, and I read this book in about a fourth of the time that I read the second one, and I just had so much fun with it. This book moves at a breakneck pace. There's so much lore, so much character work, so much backstory, and I will say, so going into these books, I had heard that it was a lot of like romantasy, smut type of stuff, which is not my genre. There's not a lot of that in this book. There's action, there's character work, there's lore, there's world building that I found very cool for a fantasy series. So if anybody is kind of turned off by those aspects of like the romance and like the smut scenes and stuff like that, I can say it's really not that bad. And I think if you're into fantasy, you know, these aren't super highbrow. They're not the best literature of all time, but they are a good time. And if you're just interested in fantasy at all, I recommend giving it a shot. I kind of relate it to my experience with the Twilight books. When I was in middle school, I read the Twilight series, and when I started reading them, I was like, oh man, Twilight, like this is gonna suck. I already know. And I blew through that series, and I loved it. I still have them, and I'm definitely gonna reread them as part of one of my nostalgia reads on the channel. Same thing. Going into ACOTAR, I was like, all right, I'm doing this for my fiance. I love her. Let's go. And then ended up books 2 and 3 liking it a lot more than I thought I would. So yeah, liked this book a lot, and I did rate it higher than The War of the Worlds. Sorry to my literature purists out there. I'm probably going to have book 4 on my TBR for next month. This one's a lot shorter. According to my fiance, this is a filler book, and according to her, not very good. This one and the 5th book are also written from a different character perspective, one character that I don't care for very much. So interested to see where that goes. But nonetheless, I'm going to read it, and I'm sure I'll like it more than I think I would. But yeah, so finished both of those books. The next book, one that I actually finished today, earlier this morning, was Tales of Light and Life, the next series in the High Republic that I'm currently reading. For backstory, I'm reading the High Republic in chronological order, which I know isn't recommended by a lot of people, but I started with Phase 2, which is the prequel phase, then read Phase 1. This is considered like the end of Phase 1, even though it's a collection of short stories from Phase 2 and Phase 1. So it was very cool to revisit some of those characters that I haven't read about in a little bit. I like this a lot more than I thought I was going to. Like I said, not super excited going into it. I was just like, I gotta read it. It's the next thing in the thing. I'm trying to read all of the High Republic, including the comics. Although I'm a little behind on the comic side of things, but overall, I would say every story in here is at least good, and there is a couple that were great. Particularly Tessa Gratton's short story, from the perspective of Marta Rowe, who is one of my favorite characters from Phase 2. Really dark and really just not what I expected, but I loved it so much because the Row characters, like, I'm going to butcher it. I think it's Marchion. I have no idea. The villain of Phase 1. He's such an interesting character, and I loved Marta Rowe from the Phase 2. So I was really happy to read that story. And then Charles Soule's short story, who was the author of The Light of the Jedi, the very first book, and he's authoring the last installment in Phase 3, which comes out this month. His writing's just incredible, and I was really happy to spend more time with Loden Greatstorm, because I feel like we just didn't get too much of his character, and seeing his relationship with Belle is a lot of fun, and I loved in that story how it jumped back and forth between the present and the past, and it showed Belle's the journey that he went on and the things that he's learned from his master and how he's using that stuff in the present time on the quest that he's on. I won't say too much, don't want to spoil anything, but thought those were both awesome. And the rest of the stories were a lot of fun as well. So if you're thinking about skipping this when you're doing your High Republic read-through, I would say don't. Read it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So then my nostalgia read for the month was the City of Ember books. So the City of Ember, which is book number 1, and then The People of Sparks, which is book number 2, and then I'm reading them in publication order, so next would be The Prophet of Yonwood, which is technically a prequel to The City of Ember, and then the last one is The Diamond of Darkhold. So I had read The City of Ember when I was either in late elementary school or early middle school. This is the only book in the franchise I had ever read. So the other three books are brand new to me. I just remember reading this as a youngin' and absolutely loving it. Such fond memories of this book. So when I saw the box set out and about, I knew I had to pick it up. And it's just it's so fun. It's so good. I love it. It's a middle grade or very young adult novel, but I think it does middle grade young adult really really well. The author Jean Duprow, I don't know how to pronounce. I'm really bad with names, but she does an awesome job with this book. And what I love the most is the themes of it. So for those of y'all that don't know, The City of Ember is about the city called Ember, which is underground, and the people living in it have only ever known that city. They don't know anything about the outside world, but the city is slowly dying. There's a generator that powers everything, and it's falling apart, and there's these blackouts where nobody can see anything because they're underground, and the blackouts are getting longer and longer, and they're running out of supplies. And you have two main characters, Lena and Dune, who are just trying to figure out what to do. And they come across a secret that is helping them figure out the next path for humanity. And the themes in this book are, well, one, a very creative idea. And there's a lot of mystery behind here, too. Like, why is the city here? What's the outside world look like? So that aspect is cool. But the thing that I like the most is the themes that this author is tackling in her books, because they're very mature themes in these young adult middle grade packages, which I appreciate a lot, because I think kids are smarter than we think they are. And when people try to dumb down books aimed at children, I don't like it, because, I think children need to face things as they are, and they'll be better for facing those things. And I appreciate these books a lot because they do tackle mature themes, which also makes me appreciate it as an adult, because I can relate to the things that are happening in here. And The City of Ember tackles issues like when leadership starts to fail its people. Leadership becomes greedy and they're hoarding things for themselves and not giving good direction. What do the people have to do? What do people do when they're in a failing civilization? Do they stick with it, or do they make big changes to move forward? Which I think is just a really interesting idea for this book. And I can say I didn't love it as much as when I was a little kid reading it. But I'm sure that's just the lens that I'm viewing it through as an adult. It's not written, it's still written for kids. It's more simplistic. But I did appreciate it a lot. And I did think it was a cool story. Now, the big surprise for me was the second book, which is The People of Sparks. I wouldn't say I liked it more than the first book, but I really, really liked it a lot. This book is very different than the first City of Ember book. If you're going into this expecting more of the same, I think you're going to be a little bit disappointed. But this book tackles war and what happens when two groups of people who are very, very different from each other butt heads, and they have to live together, and the tensions that come with that, and whether or not people can overcome differences. And I really liked what this book had to say, and it sticks with that theme of Jean, the author, just tackling these issues that I think are really important for everybody to hear. So I like that a lot. I won't spoil it. I don't want to talk about it too much. But The People of Sparks, I like just a little bit less, if not right on the same level as The City of Ember. I appreciated it a lot. And then, sticking with mature themes, I'm currently reading The Prophet of Yonwood. I actually started this about 2 hours ago. You can see I'm about a third of the way through the book. This is a prequel to The City of Ember. So far, it's not what I expected, but I find it interesting so far. This one is tackling religion, and I want to say it's looking like maybe like false prophets or false messiahs and people who interpret the will of God and all that stuff, which, once again, interesting theme for a middle grade novel. But so far I'm enjoying it a lot. I don't know if I'm going to miss the main characters. It has a whole different cast. It's set quite a while before City of Ember, as far as I can tell, but I do think it's interesting so far, so excited to read these. Luckily, these are really short reads, so I should have this done by today or maybe tomorrow. And then I have no idea what the Diamond of Darkhold is about, but I'm excited to read it. So that is my little update. Those are the books I have read, and then, of course, I need to finish this bad boy. My final for school for the semester is due Monday, which means I have a full week of no school after that. So I'm excited to chip away at this book. Long overdue. It was on my TBR for May, but just bit off more than I could chew. But very excited to start that book. And then the last thing I'll talk about is I went to In my previous videos, I mentioned that there's not really a local bookstore nearby where I live. There's just a Books A Million, which I love going to a lot. But when I visit other cities, like I went to Key West with my fiance earlier this year, and I went to two of the local bookstores. I just love the local bookstore energy and love supporting like used bookstores. And we found out that there's one actually not too far away from us, a little farther than I would go casually, but just far enough to where I was like, hey, let's take a little trip down there to check it out. And I did get a little bit of a book haul. So the first book that I read that I picked up was Paul of Dune. So for those of y'all that know me, I'm on a quest to read all of the Dune books, including the Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson books. So saw this, had to pick it up. Didn't have this one yet. I think it's the original hardcover. It just looks really cool. So I was excited to have this. None of my Dune books look like this. I believe this is the one that takes place between Dune and Dune Messiah, if I'm not mistaken. I won't get to it for a while because I'm reading them in chronological order. I just finished Sisterhood of Dune, so I have quite a ways to go till I get to this one. But you see a Dune book, I gotta pick it up. So I got that one. And then the other thing that I bought, I ended up opening it. I was gonna do it for this video, but then I decided not to because I can be a little awkward. But I bought some of those mystery books things. One was a bag with 5 books in it, and then one was like an individually wrapped one. The bag, if you can read it on here, it says ages 10 plus. So I was kind of expecting it to be more kid oriented, but the reason I bought it was because I've never done anything like that before. Like I said, only have the BAM near my house. Never had like a mystery book thing that I could open. So I just bought it, and I was like, let's go. I'm just gonna open it, and here's what I got out of it. Sorry, everything's behind me over here. So I got these 2 books. They definitely look a little more towards kids or young adults, but they're called Akisi. I don't think the first book is in here. I think this is like the second and the third book because it says Akisi More Tales of Mischief, and this one is Akisi Even More Tales of Mischief. So I might have to look into the first one to read it, but they're like little kid adult novels, and they look not adult novels, graphic novels is what I meant to say, and they look very cute. So I don't have much to say about them, but they look very cute. So I'm excited to read those. Another one was Rapunzel and the Lost Lagoon. So once again, I was like, oh no, this is definitely meant for like little kids. What did I get myself into? But it looks like a Tangled tie-in novel. So I'll still read it. I'll read anything. I don't care. I paid for it, so I'm gonna read it. But I was like, oh no, like a bunch of like much more young people stuff than I was expecting, but that's okay. But then the last 2 books I pulled out, where one was Neil Gaiman's The Graveyard Book. I've never read Neil Gaiman before, but I know he did Coraline, and I think he did The Sandman, which is the show on Netflix. I could be wrong about that, but I think so. But this looks really cool. It has a cool premise, so I'm excited to read it. But yeah, and then the last one was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. So excited to read that because I've heard this is a classic. My dad used to have a copy of this book on his bookshelf, and I remember he talked about how much he loved it. So I saw this and I was like, yay, cool. But Treasure Island. And then the last thing was, so that was the mystery book bag. And then I bought a mystery book, like individually wrapped one. And let me see if I can find the wrapper real quick. I really wanted to buy one. There's little descriptions on the back of what's included in it. But it says like romantasy, enemies to lovers, supernatural meets Fern Gully, haunting and cozy at the same time. So I was like, this doesn't sound exactly like my speed, but I'm going to still do it because I just really want to open a mystery book. And I got this book. It's called Shot in the Dark. It is by Mary Dublin and Anne Kensley. And reading the back again, it sounds interesting. It has fairies in it, and I'm already reading ACOTAR, so I was like, all right, we're in the fairy mood right now. Let's keep it going. But not something I would pick up normally, but I'm excited to read it because I got to get out of my comfort zone a little bit here and there, and maybe my fiance will like it too. So excited to read that one. If you guys have read any of those books and you want to talk about it down below if you like them, that's cool. If not, that's okay too. But I'll add those to some upcoming TBRs. But yeah, that's kind of my update for the month of June. I'll be back in a couple weeks to give you a little final video on my June reads, as well as a ranking, as I like to do. And I've been working on thinking of up some other videos as well. I really want to do a ranking of Phase 1 and 2 of the High Republic, all the different books, as well as some of the other books that I've been reading. So stay tuned for those. But as always, thanks for watching. I appreciate y'all, and I will see you in the next video. Boom.